Welcome to Amidon Planet. I'm your host, Joel Amidon. Thank you for joining me on this never-ending quest to learn how to teach better. Today on episode 113 of the podcast, we are learning how to teach better from research. Specifically, we are looking at the article From Co-Teaching to Co-Mentoring, Transforming Special Education and Mathematics Instructional Partnerships Through Shared Content-Focused Professional Development. What that means, and this project is called the MathMates Project, which we're going to learn a lot from the authors of this article in just a second, is special educators and math educators both using their areas of expertise to inform each other and work together to create a better environment for learners of all types to excel within the math education classroom. And so what's cool is we do get to talk to two of the three authors of this article. Dr. Bethany LaValle is the lead author, and this was her project for her dissertation, which you hear all about it in the episode. She is the coordinator of professional development at the Center for Math and Science Education. We also are going to have join us Dr. Alice Steinley, who's the director of the Center for Math and Science Education here at the University of Mississippi. One of the authors could not join us for the recording of the episode, and that's Dr. Julie James, who's the assistant director of professional learning at the Center for Math and Science Education. All of them have done some great work in this area, and they're continuing to do great work on this project, and excited that they got a chance to put together this article and get it published and out into the world. And that's what's cool about research, is that you figure something out, you get a chance to distill some and synthesize some key points that you want to share and put them out into the world. And that's what they did. And so glad that Bethany got a chance to do this research for her dissertation, and then that they all came together in order to write the article, and we get to talk to them about it. So we'll jump into that in just a second. So if you're looking for the links, that there's going to be a lot of different links that are going to be shared in this episode. And if you're looking for those, you can go to amidonplanet.com/episode 113. Again, that's amidonplanet.com/113. There you'll find another way to access the audio. So if you want to share that link, you can. So others that are trying to find this podcast can look for it. And if you're looking for any of the links and any of the information that we share, try to make those pages, those show notes pages, as you will, as informative as possible. If we talk about previous episodes, like one of the episodes that this work makes me think about is the work of Dr. Alice Udvari-Solner, who talked about her book, Joyful Learning. That's an episode that we'll share. And again, all those can be found at amidonplanet.com/episode 113. I usually save this toward the ends of the episode, but if you're looking for ways to support the podcast, if you hear anything that you think others should know about, if you would share this episode, or even to rate and review any episode, or the podcast in general, wherever you get your podcast, if you can rate and review it or share it, that helps more people finding similar content to be able to find this in those algorithms. And that's what we're trying to work on. So if you could do that, that'd be great. Thank you for choosing to hit play on this episode. And without further delay, here's my conversation with Bethany LaValle and Alice Steinley on their article, From Co-Teaching to Co-Mentoring, Transforming Special Education and Mathematics Instructional Partnerships Through Shared Content-Focused Professional Development, and that's in the School Science and Mathematics Journal. Bethany and Alice, welcome to Amidon Planet. How are you, Bethany?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, Dr. Amidon?
I'm well. How are you, Joel?
Joel?
Amidon Planet doesn't need titles, so that's okay. Alice, how about you? How are you?
I am doing well. It's been a busy week, but we're doing good.
Yes, it is we're recording this right before the semester starts. I'm trying not to think about my Blackboard or some readings that I need to figure out or some new technology that I'm incorporating, but it is cool that we're all together here, and we all are all doctors on Amidon Planet. This is a very learned Amidon Planet right here. Why don't we give a little bit of background first? So, Alice, you want to go first? You want to give a little bit of background to who's Alice Steinley and what do you do here at the University of Mississippi?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Alice Steinley. I'm the director of the Center for Math and Science Education. And that center has been established since December 2006 here at the university, and we work to improve math and science education in our state. So we foster interaction between the K-12 communities and the university. as well as promote research-based methods in the classroom. And we really want to inspire K-12 students to become engaged in the STEM fields, to find those fields engaging. And so the work that I do, I'm a mathematician. I have my PhD in math, and but I really enjoy just promoting STEM education and improving mathematics education for our state.
Yeah, if there's anything having to do with STEM, I mean, if it's from chess to robotics, there's been all sorts of different things at the center. In the eclipse last year, there's all sorts of different events, and we'll get a chance a little later on to talk about what else the center's got going on this year.
We've got lots of things happening.
I know you do. And Bethany, how about you? Can you give a little self-introduction?
Sure. So my name is Bethany LaValle. I'm the Professional Development Coordinator at the Center for Math and Science Education. I have a long history with the CMSE. I worked for many years at the university in the administrative capacity and Biology School of Engineering. And Dr. O'Haver, who was a professor in the School of Engineering, founded the CMSE. And so working with Alice and that team just in an administrative capacity, I realized that I kind of liked math. I had never liked math growing up. I graduated from the School for Math and Science in Columbus, and I went for science and I went for English and literature because we didn't have the School of the Arts. But I realized that I really loved math and moved on to do other things at the university and decided I wanted to teach math. So the university had just started the Masters of Art in Curriculum and Instruction, and I think it was right after you were hired on here. And so I came and did that program to get my master's to teach math. I went and taught 7th, 8th, a little bit of high school, mostly 5th grade math, and was there about 5 years and began working with teachers on what we called the teacher support team, kind of that response to instruction type work where we were working with students and teachers, just helping students work with students who were struggling in the classroom, and fell in love with helping teachers. So decided that was my sign to come back and get my PhD in secondary education.
Yeah.
And then, so I did that on fellowship with the CMSE, and thankfully, they kept me. They let me stay. So I've been doing this job for about a year. And so the project that we're going to talk about today was actually my major project as a graduate research fellow at CMSC that I've continued into my career now.
It's cool to hear, though, but from your teaching side and what led you to pursue the PhD, that those sprinkles are in this work. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. So you kind of gave a little bit of genesis of how this work came to be, but maybe a little bit more. I mean, because this is like you said, part of your dissertation work, but it's a bigger project than that. So how did this project come to be? Whoever wants to take that.
Do you want to talk about the funding?
Sure. Yeah. So this work, we are very fortunate at the CMSE to have the opportunity to have a 1-year, kind of like a seed project, where we get to kind of test out something that we've been thinking about. And that funding is from the Mississippi Space Grant Consortium that's also housed here at the University of Mississippi. And that our space grant funding, they allow us to think about a project that we've been wanting to look into, some work that we've been wanting to do, hoping that it can create something on a much larger scale eventually. And so when Bethany came to us, thinking about this co-teaching idea, how we can really begin to partner our special education teachers with our general mathematics classroom teachers, how can they work together for the benefit of the students? And that just spoke to both Dr. James and my hearts and what we know that we wanted to do. And so I'll let Bethany pick up with how we designed it, but we were really excited about that opportunity and the way that we could push the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when you talk about it being sprinkled in, it really was kind of a heart project. I had worked with my last year of teaching. We had a large population of students in special education, and I worked with an amazing special education teacher who was pulled in so many different directions. And we had these great conversations when we would have need to have a conversation, but for the most part, like if we were together on a duty or if she just needed to know something, but for the most part, we didn't know how to talk to each other. We just didn't know. It was a very frustrating thing for both of us because we could see that there was something great there, but we couldn't quite figure out how to do it. And so that's kind of where I came into my program with that in mind. And so when Julie and I sat down and started talking about this project, we knew a few things. We knew that special education teachers had voiced to the CMSC a want to be involved in math professional development. There had been several that had come through projects that were not general ed classroom teachers, but special education teachers who had benefited from it and wanted more of that sort of thing. And then we knew that in our state there was kind of this divide between general education and special education teachers just because of the funding in small schools. There really weren't enough special education teachers to go around. I'm not speaking of that officially. That's just my observations to go around. And we were at AMTE, the Association of Math Teacher Educators, and the group with Dr. Laura Van Ingen.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Lauer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's that Laura is correct.
Yeah.
So we were at one of her presentations, and they had been working on this consultation model with special education and math teaching pre-service teachers. And one thing that she said during that presentation that really stood out to me was about how all of these, you think about our professions, have training and consultation, but teachers don't. So doctors, lawyers, all of these licensed professions, they do some sort of training and consultation to talk to one another, but teachers generally don't have that. And so that's what their project was about. And we took their consultation model, and that was kind of a foundation for developing this project. We knew we wanted to bring special education and math teachers together. We knew we wanted them to do math together. We felt that those conversations to get to know one another and bring their two sets of expertise together would happen over math. That was just overdoing math. That was just kind of our feelings about it. But then as we started digging, we found research backing that is true, that if they do back a little bit, that they do there was a little bit of research on that. They do math together. They would have these conversations. And so that just spearheaded the project. And that from there it went from, well, who do we recruit? How do we make this happen? Where do we want them to come from? So we started with 4th and 5th grade, mainly because I had taught 5th grade, and that's kind of where I was coming from. But we felt also that 4th grade, because of that big jump between 4th and 5th grade, that was just an immediate need area. And we knew we wanted to move on to middle school because we knew that was a big need as well. But we started kind of in familiar territory before we moved to the middle grades.
The emergent nature of because sometimes you're like, in this ivory tower sometimes that we sit in, like you think like, oh, I'd like to do this, I'm gonna get funding, I'm gonna go find a place to do it, versus like this was like, no, I have a heart for it, I know there's a need for it, and there's been calls towards the center like, hey, we would like to do that. All right, so and then even like the problem that emerged, but like, hey, there's a frustration with how do we talk, and like now all of a sudden, okay, now we start tapping into, all right, what work has been done, and how can we get this accomplished, and then get it funded as well. Like it's really cool how that all came together. I mean, so Alice, like, how do you, I mean, that's kind of a cool thing, like. What about it made you, like, you saw that spark, you saw that idea, and, like, now you say, oh, how do I fuel that? I don't know. That's kind of a cool thing. Just say more.
So whenever we get the opportunity to pause and just say, I wonder, or I wish we could, or, someone asked me about such and such, let's see what we can do about it. And then when we have the opportunity and the mechanisms in place to really explore that and investigate what that's going to look like for not only for us, maybe in the center doing the work, but for our teachers who are out there doing the work, and we want to support them through that. And so, thankfully, when we started out with the 4th and 5th, we had such a great response from those teams that we recruited, the professional development they went through, the follow-ups that Bethany did with them, in person and virtually. that we were actually able to continue that project, and as she mentioned, move it into those middle grades. So we began to see how we could make a project like this expand and work with multiple grades, and how does this co-teaching model transform, as we're moving into these different schools, different grade bands, and how teachers work together. And so it was just really organic, how it came to came to play, and that it became so important and an important part of the work that we're still doing at the center.
Yeah. And so I guess what sparked this conversation, well, I mean, probably should have had this conversation, but also too, what was kind of cool is getting that email from Bethany saying like, hey, there's a publication that emerged, and so from co-teaching to co-mentoring, transforming special education and mathematics instructional partnerships through shared content-focused professional development in the school science and school science and mathematics. I miss it. Sorry, it's abbreviated. What do I?
It's the School Science and Mathematics Association.
And that's the journal.
That's the journal.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, it's some abbreviations. I was just making sure I got it right. Well, we should also mention, too, that someone's not here, too. One of the co-authors, Julie James, also at the Center for Math and Science Education.
She is either on her way home from or currently whale watching in Alaska. So
there we go.
We're all very jealous of this.
Yeah, all right, yes. So like you'll see, I highlighted on here the from co-teaching to co-mentoring, and so hearing the the conversation around special education, math education, like part of my story is that's kind of what sparked me to do more in my degree or in my journey or whatever was Alice Udvari-Solner, who's also a guest on Amazon Planet. She was a special education instructor at the University of Wisconsin. And just changed, helped me see, what does it look like to actually, do real co-teaching? Not just hey, we got two teachers in a room, versus real co-teaching and thinking about how do you partner effectively with co-teaching. And so much so she, kept nudging me on hey, we got to share this and do and really think about what does this look like. And so that really spoke to me with the work that you were doing. But that from co-teaching to co-mentoring, that seems to be the real heart of this work. But again, maybe I'm not saying it. Is that it? Do we get? Is that the real thing?
It is, and I'm smiling at you when you say that because we've talked about all this stuff happening organically. So as we're going through these, we're going through these two PDs, the two cohorts with these two groups, we started using this word, they're kind of like co-mentors, this, there's not really a mentor and a mentee, they're both mentoring one another. And we even came up with the title of this article. So I was it's really like moving co-teaching from co-mentoring. And then when I started doing more research when we were synthesizing our findings, it was one of those things that the co-mentoring is a real thing, and there's research out there on it.
Yeah.
And it fits perfectly what we've been doing. And so that was kind of how that came together. We'd been using this term without really knowing that model that we pulled from Moser here. That came kind of with our research synthesis. And realizing our data synthesis, realizing those connections between how we lined up what was happening with the teachers as they were going through this professional development, and then here are these steps from this research of people at work, that fits perfectly. And I felt that it was important that we use that, and this is some stuff that's coming from my dissertation too, is that it's back to that just putting two people in the room together and saying, well, now teach together, go, have fun, go do great things. And but there's this whole body of research on how people work together, and all of that tells us you can't just put two people together and say, go do great things, and sometimes it works out. Because it's just naturally going to, but other times it doesn't. And so there are education researchers who have been kind of picking from that work body of how people work just in the workplace and applying it to education. And there's been, from what I could see, kind of a push for more educators to think about this humanity in the work of teaching. And a lot of that research on how people work together fits into that. So it was satisfying, I guess is the word to use, that fit so well. And it was just a validation that this stuff about how people work together and this stuff about how teachers teach together goes together. We need to put these things together.
I think that was probably one of my most favorite parts of writing this article with Bethany and Julie is that when we would have these writing sessions, I remember one very distinctly in my mind where we were looking at Moser's framework, those steps, and we were saying, oh, wow, that works with what we were just saying, and that's the next thing that they did, and that's the next. And so it really just came alive, I think, at that moment. It was kind of validated in our mind, you know, like this is good stuff, and this is something that we're excited to share.
Yeah, I mean, there was so much if you like a good visual, you've got a great figure in that, like where you put the co-teaching, that co-mentoring.
They can't see us pointing at Alice. The graph theory, the graph theorist over here.
Love a good image. Oh my goodness.
PhD graph theory is coming to play.
That's right. But also, I mean, just thinking about you kind of point out the power of words, you know, right there. So like with co-teaching, one, just back up everything. Some people don't like group work, and I think they don't like group work because people just put people together and assume that they're going to work. So for those teachers out there thinking about how are you organizing your group work, be thinking about that. Anyway, going back to this, thinking about co-teaching, you know, hey, you're going to be co-teaching versus like there's automatically a power relationship. Someone's name is on the class, right? And then if sometimes maybe they're both names are on the class, but then still maybe it's someone's room, and it's like there's just already some dynamics that assume power. But then thinking about co-mentoring is like, no, we both are bringing something to the table. It's like an asset-based perspective on the expertise, and kind of getting back, Bethany, you were talking about like, hey, we have knowledge to share with each other, but now as we can focus on, we both have power in this or status, whatever. Yeah. Now how do we do that exchange?
Yeah. And I really think it's important, you know, an important piece to this was finding those elements that each other bring, that they can appreciate from one another. Yes. And so I really would love for Bethany to talk about, you know, one of the first things that they do is that appreciative inquiry.
Yes.
And thinking about what is it that this teacher has to offer to the classroom versus what does this teacher have to offer to the classroom. And if somebody were to come in and observe in the classroom, not knowing whose name was on the door, could they and should they be able to even tell who the general education teacher is and who the special education teacher is? All of those students deserve the same learning opportunity. And so the way in which they co-teach together should be seamless. And, you know, and so that's something that we tried to build in those relationships. But I would really love for you to explain that.
The appreciative inquiry. Yes. So that's another one of those organic things to this. So we had gone to attended a session by Dr. Beth Cobett, who wrote Strength-Based Teaching and Learning in Mathematics. It's 5 teaching turnarounds for grade K-6, not just for grade K-6. So if you're 7-12, still a wonderful book to read. So the activities are K-6, but the content change, I mean, it's even for teachers. So we had gone to her session, and we really liked, I don't remember why we got the book to begin with. We really liked the book, and COVID hit right after that. And so we wanted to do some online things, and we did an online book study of, it's Beth Cobett and Karen Karp are who wrote the book. It's a Corwin book.
The Legend of Karen Karp.
Yeah. Yes. So it's an amazing book. Mine's falling apart. But we did a book study, and so when we were planning this work at the same time, because this was supposed to be a 2021 project that got pushed to 2022 was the first year of the cohort. And so as we were going through this, we thought this is perfect for this work we want the co-teachers to do together. So in their book, they talk about an appreciative inquiry, and the way that they that Dr. Cobbett and Dr. Karp do this with educators is having a teacher. I'm trying to think of it here on the top of my head. Okay, so having a teacher, the first thing they do is they think about a moment that they were powerful in the classroom. So Beth starts this with, I'm asking you to be brave and think about something that when you were in that moment, whatever was happening, whoever you were with, you thought, this is where I'm supposed to be. And Beth, if you're listening and I'm getting this wrong, I apologize.
We can put links to the work.
Yeah,
in the
we can
show
put links.
Notes, so we'll be good.
So who were you, when you felt like you were the most, this is where I'm supposed to be, this is my power moment. And to think about that and write down where you were, what the students were doing, what you were doing, what the classroom felt like, to just really put yourself in that moment. And so we had them write it down. And so they turned to their partner, and in our case, it was their co-teacher, the person that they were teaching with. They turn to their partner and they share their story. So each of them have an opportunity to share that power moment. And then they are to take the story that their partner told, take it to someone else in the room and tell that other person their partner story. And so that other person is telling their partner story, and then they talk about the strengths they see. They talk about, all of those really powerful things that were going on, anything they notice that can be attributed as a strength to that teacher, and then they take that conversation back to the original person. And when this happens in the classroom, we've done it with co-teachers, we've done it with another workshop with just teachers who had registered. It is the most powerful moment, especially for the co-teachers, because we had co-teachers who had taught together for several years, and they're in tears because they didn't realize they were seeing new things in themselves that they had not seen before. So we found that that created a sense of closeness, but it also helped if we had a team who was having a little bit of they didn't know each other that well, or maybe there was a little bit of friction in their relationship for some reason. And being able to bring back to somebody something somebody else said is a safe space for me to be if I feel like I've got friction in this relationship. And so we could still share those things. And it was just a very unifying moment for the teachers. And we capitalized on that by then them taking those strengths that they noticed and completing the strengths inventory that we have attached to the article in the appendix.
Nice. And that, and that's what's cool, and a bunch of cool things about the article, but you have things that people can take and start implementing within. And I love that. And again, you want to make sure we're giving credit. And again, we'll put links in the show notes, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Hey, I'm going to take this piece will fit right in here. Or this framework fits in. I love it. The organic nature of this. But Alice, when you saw that appreciative inquiry, you wanted, is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
I just think that it really laid a foundation. Like Bethany said, it was with the co-teacher groups that were already assigned to one another, but there was this new foundation, or maybe a stronger foundation, that just was put into place. Think about it, your personal self, thinking about some moment that you shared with someone where you felt brave and you felt powerful and you felt that it was a good moment for you. And then that person goes and shares it, and somebody else has such good things to bring out of that. And, that's just like Bethany said, it's a way in which they got to see each other through different lenses, but also to be able to build on a foundation that could have been shaky at first. Now it's just a more solid foundation for them to begin working on this project together, because they were there at the Professional Development Institute for a week together. almost a week, they were able to then, implement the things that they learned from that institute in their academic year. And so it just really gave that foundation that I think was important.
And it goes back to that trust research that we've talked about in the article, that they found that when PLCs come together, if there's not some level of trust there, they don't really get anywhere because I'm not being vulnerable. And we felt that the appreciative inquiry put them in a place where they were kind of forced to be vulnerable. And, there's some trust. I have to trust, like if I'm doing this with Alice, I have to trust you with my story.
Yeah.
To take to somebody else that I may not know that well.
Yeah,
right? And so we're kind of establishing that, even that little bit of, I'm going to have to trust you with this to tell my story well. And when I mentioned her in the article, it was actually one of the teams that I worked with on my dissertation. When I asked her, they were an amazing team, a beautiful team to watch. When I asked her what she thought was the most impactful part of this whole program, she said that strengths inventory.
Wow.
And her words were just having that where we were sitting down having an intentional conversation. She made it like as an opening up of just bearing ourselves to one another. That made all the difference. They had a year together that was kind of a year of surviving, and she said, and after that moment, they were like, she said, it was just like solidifying. It was, we've joined hands in this, and we're moving forward.
Kind of thought, like, I don't know, it gets me thinking of that book, The 5 Love Languages. But
that team talked a lot about the love languages. They had just read, one of them had just read that book.
Wow.
So bringing that in. Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, there we go. But I was just thinking, like, it's almost like what's your power language? It's like, and so if I know, like, for me, like, I love a little bit of chaos, and like where, like, it's a little chaos where kids are asking questions, inquiry. There might even be some arguing going on, but they're arguing about math, so we're kind of focused, like, and so if I know that if like the person I'm working with sees that and be like, oh, I need to, like, they might say, if they didn't know that about me, that's a great thing for me, they might try to stop that. Hey, let's be quiet, let's call it. And like, versus like, no, oh, this is right there, right? This is right where Amidon wants it to be. And so there's some that getting to know their story. I think that's something there where you're talking about think like, look like, feel like. You're really getting into all that sort of good stuff to develop that great relationship. So I guess, just, want to honor your time, but like, what are some other, like, maybe key mile points? Because I know there's lots of different stages here. What are some other things that you wanted to highlight from the work that you talked about in the article?
Do you have any ideas, anything that stands out to you?
Well, let's go here. So, somewhat, I think that there's, thinking about this sort of work, and obviously the easiest thing would be to, hey, come to the Center for Math and Science Ed, and like, we're going to do, but what if someone can't? Like, someone's getting this podcast from a different place. Like, what would you say to them? Like, how would this help them? The Amidon Plan is all about learning how to teach better. So what are the lessons in here on learning how to teach better?
So first of all, my recommendation always when anyone's talking about co-teaching is you've got to start with the relationship of your teachers. And so just from what the teachers that have gone through this project have told us is helpful is having time together before the year starts. And I know that we're like right there at the year starting now, but at the first of the year,
unless you're in Wisconsin.
And so before the year starts, letting those co-teachers come together and talk about their expectations for the year. And so if they can do some strengths work where they're going in and thinking about what their individual strengths are in that classroom, that's even better. If they can kind of start to assign each other some roles, or assign roles for themselves, really, and talk about who can do what, that's better. But it's really just having time to come together and decide, just like our model suggests, is the first thing they've got to do is they've got to think, why do I want to co-teach? how does that align with my values as a teacher, and what can we do together to align our values, and then start looking at what can I offer the partnership, what can you offer the partnership, and then just making that intentional move to, we are going to do this. We know we're going to run into roadblocks. We may not get to co-plan together all the time, like the research says we should. We may not get to be together in the classroom all the time, especially if the special education teacher is responsible for K-6. We had one of those in the project. There's no way that teacher can get into every one of those classrooms every day. But we are going to set these non-negotiables of things that we can control. Going to talk together every day before we leave here. We're going to have some sort of brief conversation about the day. I'm going to read your lesson plans, and we're going to look together at the lesson plans. I worked with one team that looked like the special education teacher going into the classroom at the end of the day, flipping in the lesson plan book and going, oh, you're doing groups tomorrow. Remember, Jimmy and Jane have this going on, or, oh, we're doing this, so I need to get these supports ready for these students, and just having those brief conversations. And then I've worked with teams who's actually sat down and worked through the lesson plans together, and they both worked. They've got to make it work in their context, because every school runs differently, and none of them are going to fit the standard model.
Yeah.
But it's just setting those non-negotiables that we're going to do this for the students and hold each other accountable. Some of the great things we saw with accountability was just both teachers saying, we're going to hold each other accountable to talk to each other, but also in the classroom, I'm not going to let you jump in and save a student, and you're not going to let me jump in and save a student, because we all get kind of overwhelmed when we're teaching, and we've got to get this done, and we got to move, so I'm just going to help this student out. But having somebody in there with you to go, hold on, give him just a minute. Let's just give him a minute and see and holding each other to those accountability to protect the rigor in the classroom is shown to be helpful for those teachers.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that reminded me, like, when I was doing some co-teaching, and I had a prep, but there was a resource room in the middle of all the math classrooms, and just to wander out there and be like, that anticipation, like, hey, here's what's going to be happening today. Here, if this is what we're doing in the textbook, here's this investigation, or here's some, and everyone, it just felt like, okay, now everyone's anxiety is down a little bit. Now we're all okay. Here's how I can add value. Just like you're saying, it's like there's such value in that, and I can imagine for teachers that are coming together for the benefit of their students. Now they feel like I'm bringing my best self every day, to the classroom, which is fantastic.
And just that recognizing that both sets of research-based practices for special education and for math education are valid.
Yeah. And
they're proven. Yeah. They're not contradictory. They may look a little bit different, but they can be used in tandem with one another. That rigorous instruction with supports.
But again, there's another thing, and I just want to, this is kind of backing up a little bit. Like, one of the things that I really love about this article is it's talking about the idea of co-teaching, bringing services into the classroom, because just because someone doesn't have an IEP doesn't necessarily mean they can't benefit from another person in the room, or some of the things that are doing to support a student that has identified needs. There might be like, hey, wow, that's helpful for half the classroom, and versus like we're gonna have basically segregated spaces, and that's I just love the fact that what are we doing to try to put kids together and helping support learning needs, and then that supporting learning needs that might not yet be identified yet, or someone just needs a little bit of help. So
that's some of the teachers we're working this project this year with a whole school, and some of those teachers have made comments like, as far as having students with IEPs and not IEPs, that some of the students who have IEPs may have a reading disability, but they really do well in math.
Yeah.
But then there are others who didn't get an IEP because they don't necessarily have the reading disability, but they have some kind of undiagnosed math disability. Yeah. And so they're still getting math learning disability, and so they're getting what they need in the classroom too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to, not make it sound so simple, but it really is 2 experts in the classroom helping each one of those students. I mean, you can't ask for anything better, right? Like, that's what we want. And so While one expert may be thinking about the mathematics content, the other may be thinking about, well, here's how this student can be supported in that math content. So it's an
And
ideal
both-
thing to happen.
Yeah, working through problems and experiences together, and like Vygotsky said, like that zone of proximal development, what can you do with a little bit of help, and like can do so much more together than we can separate. That's a lot of lessons there. So you could take that with parenting too as well.
Right.
Yeah, it's a couple of the teachers,
Workplace,
and we talk about, like, some research wants to call it a marriage, and when asked teachers about that, some of them said, it's really more like co-parenting. It's not, instead of being married. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
they liked the co-parenting
Yeah, exactly.
analogy better.
So what's next? Kind of preview it a little bit. What's next for this work?
Yeah, so once we were able to wrap up the 2-year project, the 1-year project that we were very fortunate to be able to continue that second year, we've written a couple of grants that might have led to some further thoughts about this work, but we were glad to get a grant from the university to continue it with the whole school, and so Bethany's
Nice.
leading that project now. And
Yeah, so we had a school that was, I don't remember the acronym for how they're identified, but there's a gap between special education students in math and testing gap and general population. And so they were really interested in bringing some co-teaching work in. So we were able to get some university funds from the Achieve and Equity grant program to do this project with this school. It's a small school, so they have one math teacher, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and each grade has a different special education teacher, which is awesome. And they're really on board with having both teachers. The school really wants to move towards having both teachers in the classroom for a majority of the instruction. And so we're doing that now because we found that was one limitation to this study, was that because they were teachers, just one team from all over, they kind of felt like they were ineffective in sharing across the culture of their school. And so we've taken this as an opportunity to look at doing a group of teachers that are together in the school to see how they work through this or what this means to them.
Yeah, and it probably gets some sort of I don't want to say jealousy, but like some sort of like cred in the building, like, oh, they get to collaborate, like, and now all of a sudden the science teacher's like, well, could I get someone to collaborate with? Like all of a sudden, like that, you start seeing success, and it starts with people want to get in on that.
Noticing,
like,
right?
Yeah.
And then with the special education teachers, they work across ELA and math, so they're taking that same instruction back into their ELA classes as well.
Yeah,
So.
Nice, very good. Anything else you want to share on the article or any of the work?
We're ready to start writing the next one.
We are. I mean, I could talk to you 189 pages worth if you would like. I feel like I've been doing only this since 2020. I've been doing more than just this, but this is where my
that's where your heart lies.
My
right?
heart is, and where my brain power is, and I could talk to you all day about it.
Well, we appreciate you coming. And then the next time that something gets out there, we could promote it and publish and talk about it here on the podcast.
We do have several presentations of this coming up at the NCTM Research Conference in Chicago, and also at AMTE next spring, to hope to get some feedback on the model, because we really would like to think about developing a framework for professional development for co-teaching.
No, that's awesome. And that's the great part about this is that you did the work, you took on some other people's works and saw how it could inform what you're doing, and now you're disseminating it yourself, sharing it through articles and presentations, and so that's going to lead to more feedback, and now we're going to get into doing more and more work, and that's what we're doing here. That's awesome. So I got something for each of you, just a question I'd like to ask, just because we're all about learning how to teach better. What is something each of you have learned recently? I say recently just because sometimes we could just hit the top things that we all know that help on teaching better. But what's something you've learned recently to help you teach better?
That is a great question.
I guess I'll take some pressure off because I would like to share every now and then you can
Please share.
Yes. Is and then maybe it's just kind of like with this article, like I've been doing more and more like just thinking on my own for my own teaching, and recently Candy's Cook has been be a part of our faculty here, and the collaboration that we've had has been amazing for improving my teaching. Like, just like, because, over the past year, and she's been like asking the why question. Well, why are you doing that? And like, it's a great question. And so changing some of the things that we're doing, and having a great like reflection after we taught our elementary math methods class, like, it's just been, and it's like, it's one of those things like, yeah, that's good to collaborate smarter together, all that good stuff. And just leaning back into that. So that's been great for me. So
yeah, I think for me, thinking about each student coming into my classroom with whatever they're bringing in the door, and just being able to give each student the opportunity to share and to be in a place where they can learn and they can enjoy what they're learning. And I mean, I think, teachers have a really tough time, like, thinking about that, as far as, like, it being emotionally draining.
Yeah.
Right? But just being able to give myself grace in all of the things that are going on, all of the things that are happening, like, and being able to give myself grace to say, okay, I'm going to concentrate on this, and I'm going to make the next hour, 15 minutes, or whatever I have with these students count, right? And I that's something that I have tried really hard to be intentional about, even in regular conversations throughout our office, right? Like, devoting myself to the conversation that we're having at this moment, and then getting back to the other things that are going on.
Yeah. No, that's excellent. I like that focus.
So
I was going to say, I think I know yours. I've been watching some of your practices lately.
Oh, I'm curious now because I don't know if it's what I was thinking.
So Joel mentioned the word reflection, and I am a huge proponent of reflecting over how a session went, what I should do differently. And, with the busyness of everyone, it's really easy to say, oh, well, next time that I teach this, I'll make those changes. And I've noticed that Bethany has started thinking about the sessions almost immediately after she returns to the office. And I think it was yesterday, maybe even this morning, we were talking, and she was saying, I'm making the changes to this session right now while it's fresh.
Wow.
And I'm thinking about, even though it may be next summer before that session, that professional development session happens, making the changes now. And
that's amazing.
I'm just applauding,
yes.
Because that is what I love,
Wow.
doing that. I love being reflective and thinking about practices and being in the moment of that reflection. And so I've noticed that this week.
Well,
so I wanted to tell you how much I appreciate it. And
thank you. Well,
that.
by your reflecting over my first year of this job, we get busy really, really quickly. And then it's just like, I have 4 PDs to plan before next week. No, it's not that bad. But so thinking about that, it's a survival mechanism that I want to remember to do these things, because it's important to me that we give quality material. And so even if it's little typos to this needs to be, I remember they were very confused by this activity, so we need to rewrite that. So I'm working through that. And that's probably, I've learned that over this past year. And another thing that I was going to talk about, and it may be related to that, is sometimes when we plan so many different types of things. Like one week I could be working on struggling learners for K-6, and the next week I'm working on High School Algebra Institute, and then it goes back and forth. And we have all of these great new resources that are coming out, and I want this book, and I want that book, and I'm going to read this article. And I think it would get overwhelmed by all of this. And I found that I want to incorporate a little bit of everything. And something happened with, we had a question about a standard at PD we were doing a few months ago. And I was reading an article about it, and the author of the article said, well, just go back to the definition of that word in your standards. And I was like, wait, yeah, let me just do that. And so I went to the definition. And so Julie and I actually, as we were having this conversation, we started like having this mantra of what does the definition say? What do the progressions say? What does the standard say? Like going back to because we've had those for so long that sometimes they just become second nature, but going back to that simple, that foundational document. And this comes a lot with the reflection. I want the teachers to walk away with something, like thinking of that simplicity. I don't want the teachers to walk away feeling overwhelmed. I want them to walk away with, I can put this in my classroom tomorrow if I need to. This is a change I can make, even if it's a small change. I never want them to feel like they have to overhaul everything to make a big change. A small change can make a big change. So I think that's it, that reflecting on what the teachers are getting out of it, making sure that we're giving quality materials, and then just keeping it simple, keeping it streamlined. And those small incremental changes that teachers can make, really focusing on those.
This is like, as I'm thinking about my own syllabus right now, syllabi, I'm like, I'm going to write that down.
Make a note.
Yes, streamline. That's what I need to do. Thank you so much for sharing. But I know we talked about we got the article, put the link to that in the show notes. We talked about presentations coming up at NCTM and AMTE. We could put links to the center. But anything specifically you want to promote that's going on, either?
We have so many exciting things happening. We've got several partnerships. We're working with our public library. For those in the Oxford area who want to come out and learn about birds and migration and exploring nature around you for all ages. That's coming up on September 14th. We've got our robotics season is kicking off for the first Tech Challenge in Mississippi. And so our kickoff is that first weekend of September. And we're super excited about this year's game. We can't wait to share it with everyone. If you have students who are interested in creating a robotics team, we've got grants available that can help you do that for your school and for your community. We've got lots of professional development. We have our middle math institutes that are starting up. The online version starting this fall, and so you can register for those. And lots of grants in the works, so it's nonstop around there.
That's right.
Really excited about our new graduate research fellows that have joined our center this year, and Bethany's going to be working with them on a collaborative writing session. We're very excited about that, and excited about what came from that last year and what will come this year.
Yeah, awesome. Bethany, anything that you need to add on?
Ditto. I can't think of anything that I'm working on right now that we could share yet with professional development. We've got several on-site contracted PDs with schools that we're excited about this year. Some pretty big projects there to work in some areas that are semi-new to us, and to form those relationships. We love just helping teachers. We just love being there and being a resource for teachers in the classroom. And
those are kind of our three pillars that we like to stand on, is being knowledgeable, making those personal connections and relationships with people that we work with, not just in our center, but the people external to the center as well, and just sharing our expertise.
We also have the Math Specialist Network coming up November 11 and
10th and 11th.
10th and 11th, November 10th and 11th
Yeah.
here in Oxford, and that's for math specialists, coaches, administrators, lead teachers in Mississippi to come together and just have a time to it's a big professional learning community
Yes.
of specialists, and you and Candice and
Yeah, Dr. Monroe.
Dr. Monroe have come and
we've done
presented
that.
at that.
Yeah.
So we'll do that again this November. That's
love
always an exciting event.
November 11th and 12th.
November 11th and 12th.
November 11th and 12th at the Jackson Avenue Center in Oxford.
And again, I guess maybe the most valuable piece of information on the show notes would be the website for the Center of Math and Science, because and given that the University of Mississippi has a new website, that link is actually very important. So you can find it.
For sure.
All right. I guess that means it's time to go.
Sorry.
All good. No, good. All right. Well, Alice and Bethany, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for the work. And just look forward to hearing more as more comes about.
Thank you. Thank you for letting us come talk about it.
This was fun.
It was fun. We love talking about what we do.
Yeah, and hopefully we get to see some pictures of whales from Julie whenever she gets back. There we
The
go.
pictures she has been able to send have been incredible.
Nice,
So,
nice, very good, awesome. Well, there it is. There's my conversation with Bethany and Alice, and so cool to have great colleagues just across the road that you can talk to about math ed and all the cool things that they're doing to make sure that kids have a great experience learning mathematics, no matter their learning needs, and that also educators are getting an opportunity to mentor each other in order to, again, make themselves better, learning how to teach better. There we go. All right, real quick, now's the time for the album of the episode. I want to talk about Bon Iver for Emma, Forever Ago. I actually talked about this album a little bit a long time ago when I referred to my episode with, actually a solo episode, talking about Malcolm Gladwell and Rick Rubin's podcast, Broken Record. It's the digital liner notes, but they would talk to artists, the ones I kind of highlighted, talking about the Black Keys. I think I would talk about that on the last album of the episode when we talked about R.L. Burnside's Hill Country Blues, Mississippi Hill Country Blues. There was also a great episode of the Broken Record podcast talking with Bon Iver and his partner that he records with. I can't remember his name offhand, but you can go back and listen if you're really interested. I'll put a link to that episode. Anyway, Bon Iver for Emma, Forever Ago is I love, well, right now I'm listening to a lot of Noah Kahan, and I feel like Noah Kahan wouldn't exist without Bon Iver. Like I just saw some episode or something got released on Spotify where Noah Kahan was playing a concert at Fenway, and Noah Kahan is from the Northeast, so he's playing this concert in Fenway Park, and it's loaded, and he's really playing it with, I mean, I know he's got a band behind him, but it's like him and his like acoustic guitar, and I feel like that, and again, people might nitpick this, but a guy and a guitar, like talking about loneliness. So like, you know, Stick Season, Noah Kahan's famous number one hit, or at least the one that I listen to the most, you know, about like kind of loneliness during COVID and sitting in Vermont. And I think that comes from Bon Iver sitting in a cabin in Wisconsin between jobs. He's maybe thinking about going to become a music teacher. He tried doing a band in like the Carolinas, but then moved back to Eau Claire to kind of wait out and start a teaching job in the fall. But in the meantime, he was up in his parents' cabin and just alone in his cabin with a guitar and recording device, and came up with this album. And it's cool. The cool part is Justin Vernon, or Bon Iver, recorded this like miles from where I grew up. And you can kind of, I don't know, maybe you kind of hear it, I think, maybe a little bit. But Skinny Love, Flume, I mean, the whole album, again, reason why I love albums is cover to cover, this thing, or side to side, this thing is, it just plays. But the songs that people know probably most is Skinny Love. But he's got that falsetto going. But just, I don't know, it makes me think about a time and a place of kind of wonder, like, what does the future hold for me or for you or for whoever's listening. And just knowing that, I mean, Bon Iver goes from this, again, recording solo in a cabin in northern Wisconsin, to then being probably on a future album, the episode talking about Folklore from Taylor Swift. He's on that album with Taylor Swift singing Exile. Kind of amazing. So there's that. Hey, that's Bon Iver's Forever Ago. That is going to do it for this episode of the Amidon Planet podcast. Show notes can be found at amidonplanet.com/episode 113. Now, for those of you out there looking for ways to support the podcast, there's many ways you can support the podcast. You can subscribe, you can rate, you can review, you can share. Any of those actions that you do, especially the share, where that kind of makes my heart warm when you share it, because that means you found something valuable and you think somebody else would find something valuable. So if you share that podcast, that means a lot to me, but then also means somebody else is getting a chance to, one, someone knows that you're thinking about them, right? And then two, that person might become better at some angle of teaching that you were looking to help them at. So that's awesome. And then that benefits others. So that's a good way to love on others, is to share the episodes. And again, especially trying to find ways to add value into the world. And that's a good thing for me to know as well. So that's a good way to support the podcast. You can also support by subscribing to the Amidon Planet download, which contains teaching resources and updates from Amidon Planet. Anywhere on amidonplanet.com where you see join the email list, you click that, you'll get the Amidon Planet download when it is released. You can also submit a question, comment, or suggestion to the mailbag by sending an email to joel@amidonplanet.com. In addition, I am always looking for opportunities to work with those who are looking to lead people to love others through teaching. If you have an event or opportunity to share, you can either send an email to joel@amidonplanet.com or head to amidonplanet.com/about to fill out the request to call form. Thank you for spending time on Amidon Planet. Thanks to Bethany and Alice for sharing their time and expertise. Thanks to Matt Mifflin for the music in this episode. And finally, thank you to all of you out there learning to teach better and be the good in the world by investing in the lives of others. This world is a better place because you have decided to use the gifts you have been given to serve others. Thank you for all that you do. Peace.